Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Callahan. I'm a product marketing manager here at Tulip, and I'm here with Phil Long, who is a senior asset leader with McKinsey Company in their manufacturing and supply chain practice. Phil, I'll admit that when I started at Tulip and first learned about the McKinsey partnership, I didn't realize how your company plugs into the world of manufacturing. So maybe as we start off here, you can let us know a little bit more about what you do with McKinsey and your role, and maybe how the company plugs into this manufacturing world.
Thanks a lot for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. Indeed, in my role at McKinsey, I lead a group that is focused on helping our clients tech enable their operations, specifically in the manufacturing space. We have a global group of practitioners that focus on this, and we serve clients across the globe in a whole host of industries on these topics. And within the construct of our team, there's different ways that we help our clients do that. When McKinsey kind of surveys the ecosystem and would determine that we are uniquely well positioned to develop, maintain, keep evolving a product, we actually build our own digital products for clients to use. That comes as a surprise to many people that McKinsey has a quite sizable wing of folks that are focused on that type of work. But complementing that is we partner with a number of technology companies around the globe that offer distinctive capabilities, right, that we can jointly bring to our clients. So my team is really a combination of those two approaches to help our clients along.
That's great. So we hear a lot about digital transformation in this industry. It starts to lose meaning sometimes, how often you do hear it out there. Maybe you can fill us in a little bit on the transformation journey. How does McKinsey see that, and how do you help customers?
Yeah, McKinsey actually starts even a step before that, which is, what is the company trying to solve, right? What are the major pain points? What are the major metrics that they want to hit, right? What are their primary goals? So before we even go into whether it's digital or not, we sit down at a very strategic level with our clients and basically identify where is the impact going to be if we work together. And then starting from that base, which really governs everything that we do afterwards, you can then go through the flow of identifying very specific initiatives to address the pain points that the clients would have. And then some of those initiatives might involve what you would consider traditional manufacturing, traditional lean approaches. And then some of them would involve digital approaches. So you can see that by the time we actually get to the level of a digitally flavored transformation, we've had a number of conversations before that with the clients to make sure that we're tackling this in the most effective way. But once we actually get to the point where everyone agrees that some sort of digital application makes sense, we take a very, somewhat unique approach at McKinsey where we're actually agnostic with the platforms that our clients would choose to use. We have very strong partnerships, like I mentioned earlier, with Tulip and with other technology players, where we have crafted joint value propositions where we think that basically 1 + 1 is greater than 2. But we never force our clients into those particular routes, right? So we let them make the decision. And then based on that, we support in a number of different ways. But once the clients have essentially landed on how they want to apply the technology, right? How they want to go about the transformation, our teams are embedded very deeply with the clients at the ground level, working hand in hand with them throughout the implementation of this. These are folks that have deep operations experience on the shop floor, combined with technology expertise to make sure that we're hitting both sides of the equation to actually capture the value for the clients. So we do that hand in hand with them. And then ultimately, when you have a working model with an initiative, the whole goal is to be able to scale the value of that beyond, say, a single line, beyond a single factory. And that's where McKinsey ultimately helps tie the whole piece together with our clients at the scaling piece, right? So it's integrating with the way that they work, it's accelerating it, and then ultimately it's helping them think through, these small successes that we've had. how do we actually scale that so that you can capture value across the entirety of your network?
You are predicting a lot of the questions that I've laid out here. This is great. Let's unpack a couple of those one by one. You mentioned earlier in that response about identifying where you can have the most value, drive the most impact. How do you go about targeting those early use cases, impacts, low-hanging fruit, value drivers?
Yeah, exactly. There has to be a prioritization exercise done at the beginning, right? And of course, the first piece of this is, what are the things that are going to move the needle for the metrics and the results that actually matter for the client? And then you have, based on that, you have kind of a small collection of things that you can do, right? And the choice, of course, is typically, even though we've narrowed it down to a smaller group of things that we can do, most clients are not able, for various reasons, to do all of them. So to help them land on where do you start, there's a few different criteria to consider. One, of course, is the pure value that you're going to get out of those initiatives. So let the ROI for the resources that you pour into it, what are you going to get out of it in a certain period of time? That's one thing that you obviously want to consider. Another is taking a look at their organization and saying, given the numbers of folks that we have, given the skill sets of the people that we have, which of these initiatives are we best positioned to be successful with and best positioned to be sustainable with? Because those are actually two different things, right? And then it's a matter of how do you assemble the proper teams to be able to actually tackle these things and put together the infrastructure around the kind of day-to-day work to be able to see it from an idea to real implementation. So it really starts with a prioritization exercise and meeting the clients with where they're at, right? Because some clients might be a little bit further along in the maturity spectrum, whether that's with digital or otherwise. Some may be a little bit less advanced with that, and helping to understand where they're at in the maturity can help us land on where we should begin with that.
I want to pick up on something you started to talk about a little bit with ensuring success, and once you've had this rollout, now you're moving into the next phase. We sometimes talk about this as the greenhouse effect, right? Where you are building the growing conditions for success to enable adoption, make sure that you're enabling stickiness and growth. I know you just mentioned earlier you have teams with deep operational experience. What else do you guys use to ensure growth and success once you've passed through that initial rollout?
Look, part of this is anchored on the right technology if this is a tech-enabled initiative, for sure, right? So you need to be able to be using a platform that can easily extend beyond a certain use case, or at least a certain use case in a localized application, and be able to do that in many more situations, many more geographies, perhaps many more languages, right? So that's part of it. But equally, if not more important to that, is the organizational setup that the client will put around it to support it, right? So for instance, one of the approaches that we often take at McKinsey is to train the trainer, right? So we start by helping the first site structure the setup, put together the right skill sets, develop the right skill sets, and have them positioned for success to take over the initiative and transformation on their own. And then we help them take those skills that they developed at a single facility to the next level of the web that might extend out to 10, 15, or many, many more facilities beyond that. But the whole point is that you need to have real ownership of these initiatives at every single location so that people feel like they're involved and have the ownership over whatever they're leading, and to make sure that you have a structure in place to support it globally.
Yeah, I want to unpack something you mentioned earlier on with technology. You said it's great to have a platform. You need that in place. What else? What other trends are you seeing that accelerate deployment with regards to technology? I mean, Tulip is a no-code platform, so obviously we care a lot about that. But I'm curious, as an agnostic partner, what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things driving the uptick in velocity. And one of them is pure need-based from the clients that we work with. For instance, we're seeing a huge amount of baby boomers retire right now. And in the manufacturing space, that translates to a massive amount of knowledge and capabilities that are leaving facilities. And it's not easy to one for one match somebody who has, worked at a facility for 10, 20, 30 years and has an amazing amount of knowledge and quickly train up another human to reach that, right? So there's really a need for technology to step in and play a role of helping codify and translate that knowledge to the next generation. That's part of it. Another is competition. The fact that, regardless of what industry you're in, the level that you have to perform at to be an effective business is constantly rising, and that's good, right? Because we continually kind of advance. But that means that, you get to the point where you really do need to often adopt some digital capabilities in order to meaningfully advance how you are performing your operation. So that's part of it. But complementing all of this is, we have a much more digitally native collection of folks that are working in these industries these days. These are people that grew up with phones, maybe not smartphones, although some of them did, but tablets and computers. These are ubiquitous for many of the folks that are starting to work in manufacturing. They use them in other parts of their lives and have for a long time. So it makes sense that they would implement this sort of thing in their day-to-day work. And then, the other considerations here are a lot of the leading technologies that can be applied in manufacturing are much more effective these days at being able to integrate into the ecosystem of the clients as they are, right? Because every situation is going to be different. Maybe one client acquired a company and each side of the company had different IT or OT infrastructure, right? Or maybe they have one set of machines that are from 1960 and another set of machines that are from the 2010s. And being able to talk to those IT and OT systems, being able to connect to, PLCs and speak the language, all of these things are becoming easier and hence lowering the barrier for clients to get started with technology in a way that even 5 or 10 years ago would have been more difficult.
That's great. I'm going to roll our next question into the two next questions because you just started touching on the digital ecosystem, how that all works together. I also want to ask you about how you think about scaling use cases and sharing best practices, both within a site to different teams and also broadly across sites globally. I suspect those things are related. Maybe you can touch on both of those.
Yeah, you have to find a happy medium between having a foundation that is consistent between different facilities, but also having a certain amount of leverage on top of that to be able to customize, because that's what we typically see with our clients is that, yes, you might be making the same product or a very similar product at two different locations, but the actual on the ground manufacturing operations do have some differences at the end of the day. And so you cannot come in with a monolithic approach to this that fit the first site, but has no adaptability to the second site. So what we find tends to work is that, let's call it 80% built foundation for a use case. And I'm talking about like a digitally driven use case here, but being able to develop essentially, let's call it a library of digital use cases, digital applications that are 80% built at the fundamental level. And then you fine tune the last 20% for the different situations that you would go into. And that saves loads of time and ensures that while there may be some differences, there are not dramatic differences along the way that folks are gathering data, generating KPIs, so on and so forth.
Perfect. And then related to this, and we'll close on this topic, what's something that you're most excited about happening in the manufacturing space or the technology space more broadly? Obviously, everyone's talking about generative AI these days. I'm not sure if that's the top of your list, but curious to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, it's hard to choose, right? Because you have generative AI, you have application of vision-based tools, new types of sensors that can be easily put into the lines. You have wearables that are highly interesting. But I think this notion of augmenting humans is really important. And that can happen in a variety of ways. But I think that for many years, we were talking about, potentially removing humans to some degree or other. And I think that those of us that work in the manufacturing space understand that that's probably, at least the farthest end of the spectrum of that discussion, is probably not the right way to think about optimizing the way that we do manufacturing. But instead, taking those human beings and helping them realize even more efficiencies, even more capabilities. That's what I'm most excited about. And it can happen in a whole variety of ways with these different technologies. So in a sense, I'm kind of skirting your question and folding together a number of different things, but that's the concept that I find most exciting for the next stage.
It's all exciting. It's an exciting world that we live in. Yeah, that was a great answer. That's it for us. I really appreciate you jumping on. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today, and thanks for joining.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.